Hello and welcome to album review number 28. Today I'm going to be reviewing Emerson Lake and Palmer by Emerson Lake and Palmer, their debut album. I did say a couple of weeks ago that I would be doing a new review soon, and that's it. I apologise for the kind of awkward camera angle here. I'm at my girlfriend's flat, not my house, and I'm in the living room, and it's a bit awkward trying to get the camera, the phone kind of set up in a decent position, so I can't do it as good as I can at home. But anyway, it's good to be back with doing reviews and that. I do miss it, and I do want to get back into it more regularly. Emerson Lake and Palmer was released in 1970, so 50-year anniversary this year. It was ELP's debut album and self-titled album. ELP are often considered to be the first prog rock supergroup, made up of members of Keith Emerson from The Nice, Greg Lake from King Crimson, and Carl Palmer from The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. It's understandable why a lot of these members would leave. They all said that, well, Greg and Keith specifically said that they had gone as far as they could go with their respective bands, and they met each other. I think The Nice and King Crimson were playing together or something, I'm not sure, but they met together in a pub or a bar, and they sort of discussed it, and then they ended up forming the band. And they form one of the greatest prog rock bands that everybody, when they talk about prog rock, you can't really talk about prog rock without talking about ELP. So let's get right into it. There's 6 tracks on the album. The first one is called The Barbarian, which is an instrumental. And the first thing you'll notice, that as soon as the song starts, heavy, distorted bass. This isn't what you'd call a clean sounding band. There's a lot of heavy bass. There's a lot of sometimes discordant keyboard work. Sometimes ELP can be quite sinister. Not sinister on the levels of, say, Panograph Generator or King Crimson, but some of the stuff's quite discordant and quite dark at times. But it's not too dark. It's more classical, I'd say, and it has that kind of like dark classical music when it's like very operatic or theatrical, I'd say. Definitely their darker parts. But The Barbarian's kind of a cool sort of instrumental song to start the album with. Again, starts with Greg Lake's distorted bass, which wasn't quite as much present in the Court of the Crimson King. In the Court of the Crimson King, he mainly just sort of played a kind of normal kind of bass sound. It was the heavy sax and the heavy guitar that kind of gave them their heavy sound, especially in 21st Century Schizoid Man. But I think Greg Lake kind of wanted the freedom to kind of do the style he wanted to do, while King Crimson's very sort of, this is the way it is and this is the kind of way it should be. But with ELP, it was a bit more fun. It's a bit more free-flowing. I think ELP were kind of more of a fun band. People say that ELP took themselves too seriously, and I wouldn't really accuse anybody of taking themselves too seriously. I think that's up to them. But I think ELP were a very fun band. Out of a lot of prog rock bands, they had funny, humorous songs, and their sound was totally unique and totally fun as well. So I wouldn't say they took themselves too seriously at all. And King Crimson were unique as well, but in a different way. And I actually personally prefer King Crimson, but I don't see how the ELP took themselves too seriously anyway. But yeah, as soon as you get you get the first bar and then a drum fill, and then Keith Emerson's slightly distorted, sinister, not distorted, discordant, sinister keyboard sound comes in, and it's sort of right from the off. They're not your Moody Blues or or Pink Floyd, kind of more pleasant to listen to bands to the sort of normal ear or the sort of average listener. ELP are quite a love or hate band for a lot of people. A lot of people just don't like them. They just sound weird to them, and that's totally fair. but I love them personally. And the Barbarian, I wouldn't say it's one of their absolute best tracks, and it's not even their best instrumental by quite a long way, but it is a good song to start the album with. It shows their instrumental virtuosity. It shows how their great instrumental virtuosity. It shows each other's styles as well. It shows that Keith Emerson likes to kind of be the front man with his keyboard. Greg Lake's heavy bass again, and Carl Palmer was also a great drummer. I think he's probably the least creative and member of the band in terms of the songwriting, but and he's definitely not the best prog rock drummer. I mean, I wouldn't say he's as good as Neil Peart or Bill Buford, but he was perfect for ELP, I suppose. The second track on the album is my personal favourite on the album, Take a Pebble, which is also the longest. It's about 12 minutes. And this song is mainly piano driven, which I was quite surprised to find out that Greg Lake actually wrote this entire song. I think I'm pretty sure he wrote the lyrics as well, but he wrote all the music. And I was quite surprised because of how piano driven it is. I thought, oh, Keith must have wrote the majority of this. There's a short, really, really nice acoustic guitar bit in the middle that's really, really nice. But I thought Keith wrote it. But now looking at it, Keith's stuff was a bit more classical, while Take a Pebble isn't really. Like if you want to talk about a song that Keith was more likely to write, just going on this album, like the Three Fates, we'll get to it. But the Three Fates, it's much more Keith's writing style. But Take a Pebble, it is easier to listen to. It's more pleasant. It is a more pleasant song, and that is kind of more Greg's style. The mix of the two was very important to have that sort of really surreal, out there, totally unique style that Keith had, and the slightly more easily to listen to accessible side that Greg brought to it, but just as melodic and just as beautiful. It's like the Moody Blues, Ray Thomas and Graham Edge and Mike Pinder, I'd say, probably wrote the slightly weirder ones, but you do need John Lodge and Justin Hayward in the band to sort of ground the album in a more kind of rock setting, I suppose, or the albums in a rock setting. But Take a Pebble is just absolutely beautiful, and it really, really shows off Keith Emerson's piano skills. Obviously, he didn't write it, but he plays it, and it's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely fantastic. Greg Lake's lyrics are really, really beautiful as well. It's soft, it's beautiful, it's really serene. I really like the sort of wee clap bit in the middle. Kind of reminds me of something Yes would do, even though actually ELP did it first. Again, it shows that they are kind of a fun band, kind of a band you kind of love to see live. Fortunately, never really got to see them live, obviously, but they would have been brilliant to see live. I think ELP, I would love to go see them back in the day. You can see when they play live that they're just the kind of band that just love to have fun on stage, in comparison to King Crimson, who are very serious, who are very, they go on stage, they play, they don't even say, hey, how you doing, we're King Crimson. That was none. I went to see King Crimson about a year and a half ago. They came out, they sat and played, and that was it. There was a wee bit of waving at the end. Tony Levin took a picture of the audience with his camera. I think he likes to do that at the end of every show. But there was no, hey, how you doing? We're King Crimson, great to be here. They just came out and played and then left, basically, because that's their style. That is King Crimson. You wouldn't expect King Crimson to be any different. But with ELP, you can tell when they play live, they just love to have, it's like a party. They just love to have loads of fun on stage, and you can get that in their music. It's just how improvisational it is, and just how much they're having fun with their music. Track 3 is Knife Edge, which is probably definitely one of the two most accessible songs on the album. It's very catchy bass line. And again, it shows with these first 3 songs, it's kind of, all 3 of them are totally different. I mean, the Barbarian's a sort of very progressive kind of instrumental that wouldn't be kind of pleasant to the average listener's ears. Take a Pebble, it's 12 minutes long, and it's really, really beautiful, but at the same time, the length of it and all that, it wouldn't make it too easy to listen to either, and neither would Knife Edge. No ELP song is totally 100% like pop or anything, or really easy to listen to. They're all experimental and all unique in some way, but they do, some of them are more accessible than others, basically. Knife Edge is pretty cool. It's, again, it's catchy. It's got what I like is that they've got blues in there, which a lot of other prog bands don't really have. I think that some other prog bands that have a bit of blues is probably Pink Floyd, definitely David Gilmour's guitar sort of influence, definitely some blues in there. But that's another thing that's great about ELP. They have classical, but there's also a lot of blues, which I think is really, really cool. And Knife Edge is a great track. The second side begins with The Three Fates, which is a kind of three-part instrumental, again, another instrumental piece. This is probably the most, I'd say, progressive in terms of how experimental it is, and it's pretty complex as well. I'd say probably it's also the most difficult to listen to if you're an average listener. It's not my favorite on the album, but it's the first one where it kind of really shows Keith Emerson's own writing style in a way, and I think I'm pretty sure he wrote that whole track himself, and you can really see his classical influences and his classical style, and that like what he's into. But I do really like the kind of fast paced kind of ending. It's quite sinister, pretty dark, but really, really cool as well. Track 5 is Tank, which is, out of the three instrumentals on the album, is probably my favourite. This was actually co-wrote by Carl Palmer. All three instruments here get a chance to shine. The kind of first half of the song, or the first third or so, is really cool bass line, really cool kind of funky bluesy, a little bit bluesy but funky bass line that kind of gets carried by the keyboard as well. Then you get a pretty lengthy drum solo, which is really cool as well with Carl Palmer, and then the kind of slows down the pace a bit, and then you get the end bit, which is my favorite. These sinister sort of heavy sort of, you could almost bang to at the end of Tank. It's kind of like heavy metal, but with keyboards and a more prog rock style as well. Kind of like 21st Century Schizoid Man, but different. It is quite a ferocious track, Tank, and it's really, really awesome to listen to. And the last track on the album is Lucky Man, which was the single, and it was kind of the album that sort of made them more accessible to other people, sort of the average listener, I suppose. And I've said that a lot, but it is kind of true. You can't talk about ELP without kind of talking about other sides. And Lucky Man was written by Greg Lake, and it does sort of show how beautiful and serene and sort of, even though it is simplistic, it's still very, very nice. The drumming's great. It's got a really nice melody. The lyrics are good, and I actually really like the Keith Emerson keyboard solo at the end, or the synth solo. I think it's really, really cool. It sort of shows that the song's it is almost a pop song in a lot of ways. It is very simplistic. It's serene. It's nice to listen to. If you're not really into prog rock, it would be one of your favorite ELP songs probably. But then a lot of people would go, "Oh, it's good up until the end." You know, a lot of people who don't like pretty much anybody who doesn't like prog rock will probably say it's good right up until the end. But I think I love it. It stops the song from going too far down the pop route, and it sort of stays true to, yeah, this is still a prog rock album, this is still a prog rock band, and Keith Emerson isn't going to be, pushed aside, because he didn't really do anything up until the end of the song. I don't think Keith Emerson didn't have much input in the song. I mean, Greg Lake wrote the whole thing, apart from the keyboard solo, really, and they put it on kind of last minute, and I think it works. I think it stops the song from being too much of a pop song, and I like it for that reason. All around ELP, it's not my favorite ELP album. I'd say probably Trilogy is my favorite, and Tarkus is my single favorite track. But I'd say it's one of the absolute best debut albums. It's right up there with The Court of the Crimson King, 10 by Pearl Jam, The Doors, It's certainly better than a lot of other prog rock bands. Debut albums like Van der Graaf Generator, Genesis, Yes, they all kind of had weak starts, and it took them to about 2 or 3 albums to really get going. ELP hit the ground running, I think, with this album, and being in previous bands did help sort of give them sort of more experience. But it's an absolutely fantastic album, and bang on 1970 as well. It's because 1970 was such an important year, because right after you're in the Court of the Crimson King, which kind of changed everything. You were one of the members who played on that album in this band, and sort of carry prog rock forward and influence it even more than he did with King Crimson. I think in the Court of the Crimson King really changed everything in terms of the direction of prog. But and after it, if you listen to prog rock albums from 67 or so to 69, they're very different. They're more Procol Harum, that kind of style. But from 1970 onwards, after In the Court of the Crimson King, they're much more in that sort of more dark, well, not darker, but more sinister, more experimental style. I think In the Court of the Crimson King changed everything. Though I don't want to make this an In Court of the Crimson King review, just pointing out how important it is for Greg that Greg Lake was on that album, and immediately, well, not immediately, because he did perform in the Wake of Poseidon, but his influence on that, and his influence on prog rock after and when he joined the LP, was very, very important, and you can hear it in this album. So that's all. Thanks for watching. I really want to get back into reviews and lists and stuff like that. I think I'll maybe do a video talking about Ozark Tentacles. That should be good. But anyway, thanks for watching.